legislation may provide important benefits by reducing costs and increasing government efficiency and productivity, with the mayor and the city council have the responsibility to determine. Thus, in light of these factors and considering the above jurisprudence from other states, we see that the city has the broad direction to enter into privatization contracts for reasons of efficiency and economy, provided that the decision to privatize is not made with political influence to civil servants. It's been ruled by the the state Supreme Court since 2003. Many municipalities have done exactly that. So contrary to, we differ from the opinion of council here.
I am not council.
Okay, well, our council has, and I would lean to your council, but it has been ruled on by the
And at the
state Supreme
appropriate
Court.
time, we would bring in our legal counsel
Sure.
to issue an opinion on that. Ms. Hebert?
Well, I was going to ask the same thing of our legal counsel. Do you mind making Mr. Escott? We lean to you on these sort of things as far as what is legal, what is not. Were you aware of this ruling, Supreme Court ruling, and do you have an opinion on this?
I do not right now. The legal department's not been asked to look at the specific issue of civil service and its integration with any proposed management contract because of the infancy of the proposal and the conceptual nature of the proposal. I didn't have any details to determine what in fact was being proposed to be able to determine whether it falls inside or outside the scope of workable solutions for the civil service system. I would need a lot more details to be able to answer that question.
Okay, well, I'm requesting, and as LPUA chairwoman and then also as a council member, for you to give us an answer.
Sure.
This is not the only group, as we all know, that has approached us wanting to give us proposals. And the public, I know my constituents, and I think I speak for everyone, is everyone's ready to know what's happening. There's a lot of rumors out there, and not just our constituents, but the employees of LUS. They are scared that they are going to lose their jobs. And that is not right.
It's not right. We
not
don't
right.
believe in that. And no one's going to lose their job. No one.
Right.
Period.
But the fear of unknown is there.
We need to
with all due respect,
we need
they
to
don't-
address that as soon as possible.
Mr. Bernhardt,
I agree.
I'm sure you're a great guy, but they don't know you.
That's correct.
There's a lot
Some
of
of them do.
there's a lot of uncertainty about their jobs.
Right.
The public is nervous, and I know we're about to have a lot of public comment, but it's time to move on. Whether we are going to put out RFPs for bids to entertain ideas, or if we are just going to, as a council and LPUA, say enough is enough, we do not want a third party. So we need to move on either way. It's not right to the community, and it's not right to the employees. That's all I'm going to say now. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hebert. As they say, the devil is in the details. We're not discussing details tonight. This is a proposal. The details come into whatever will be presented to the council in the form of a contract, a cooperative endeavor agreement, whatever you want to entitle. That's at the point where we need to have some very definite answers to all of these questions. But again, this is not on the council agenda. And until it is, then all of these questions really have no bearing on what we're discussing tonight, until we can actually have an action item. Mr. Billard.
Yes, I just want to thank you all for coming once again, and we'll see what the future holds. We have other people, obviously, as y'all know and the public knows, that are emailing the council and wanting to also put their input in, and I think the mayor president has, his thoughts on what he wants to do, and we'll hear from him. And if we see y'all again, we look forward to you. But once again, thank y'all for coming.
If you wouldn't mind giving me just 2 minutes to summarize this, and I won't be long. I'm
sorry, Mr. Bernhardt.
What?
I have another council member with a question.
I'm sorry.
Mr. Terrio.
Mr. Conk, what I was going to do here, sir, as Mr. Chair, is that I was going to ask you if there were any public comments. I was going to wait until after them, and then I wanted to speak. But however y'all want to handle this, gentlemen, and between y'all, I can wait till after. Well,
I'm going to allow Mr. Bernhardt to continue.
I'll be happy to wait to the end after we address questions and expediency.
Mr. Billard.
Yeah, I just want you to go ahead and finish, but when public comments come up, I don't want them to be directing comments to y'all. I just want them to speak, and it's not a question and answer with y'all.
Right.
Mr. Chairman,
we will
I think
not
you're aware
engage
of
in a
that.
debate.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Okay, Mr. Benhart, continue,
We
please.
just like the opportunity after public comment to make a summation comment addressed in the public comments. Thank you.
All right, thank you, sir. Thank you, Adam. No other comments from the council? Public comments, please.
We have 5 speakers. Michael A. Moss is first, and he will be followed by Derek Mesh.
My name is Michael Moss. I'm not a professional speaker, and I have no slides for y'all tonight. But I'm a taxpayer and one of the owners of LUS. And Mr. Bernhard and Mr. Robideau have publicly stated numerous times that the citizens will get to vote on LUS management proposal. I, as an owner, expect to be heard, and my vote will accomplish this. But I think what will actually happen, someone will say the charter of the consolidated government will not allow a vote. That way, the people will say, at least we tried to let y'all vote, but you know the charter will not approve this. As an owner of LUS, I will not accept this answer. Now, I want to know if a vote will be taken by the owners, the taxpayers, or not. And if I cannot get an answer tonight, when can I get an answer, and who will give me the answer? And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Moss. At the risk of being repetitious, this is not a council agenda item, so we do not know how we will proceed on this issue. Next, please.
I had called Mr. Derek Mesh, but he did say that he does not wish to speak, but he signed in opposition to the LUS management matter. Next speaker is Robert Henry, and he will be followed by Mark Pope.
Good evening. I'm a city resident of District 8. Liz, thank you. I listened to the presentation. I'm not addressing what they're saying. I'm just listening to some of the things that they said, that they did a study, and their study, I don't know who did it, but they have a study that shows that they can improve the performance and customer service of LUS. Okay, so there's a lot I want to say. I'm trying to organize it into a very logical way, so give me a chance. Do you know that LUS already did this study in 2016 with a nationally well-known consulting engineering firm, Burns and McDowell? There is a report that's available, 216 pages, very difficult to read, highly technical. But there's an executive summary that takes LUS under the current management forward 20 years successfully. And so let me see if I can find a couple of quotes from that. So in their executive summary, they talk about this planning study to assess the options that may be available to LUS, providing reliable, low-cost, and environmentally compliant power to its members, the owners, the citizens of Lafayette. So that is available. I sent a copy of this to 2 council members, but I would be glad to send you, all of you, a copy of that detailed report. The executive summary is very good, and then there are 11 items that they address stating what needs to be done. And LUS is right on track for what they were recommended in 2016. That's number 1. Did you know that LUS typically experiences fewer outages than other customers throughout Louisiana? Louisiana Public Service Commission. I think that means customer satisfaction. I think they're doing pretty good right now. LUS is currently investing in cogeneration. Cogeneration is where you have smaller generators throughout the city. And one of the advantages of that is that you don't have the transportation cost of transmission lines. It's right there locally where it's needed. You don't have the losses. It costs less. Plus, these can be brought up in a time of need during outages or overloads. They've also invested in smart meters. They have a high-tech control center that's very efficient. So I would say LUS currently has a very good system, state-of-the-art. That's my opinion. By the way, I'm a retired professor of electrical engineering from UL. I'm retired. I'm speaking on my own, not anyway on behalf of UL, but I'm very familiar with UL. So I know UL, even without third-party management, could easily get involved in some of these things. Renewable energy, for example. Okay, so to conclude, I'm very familiar with LUS, electrical engineering, and management. They have an excellent engineering management staff and engineers. Why would you want to replace this with a third-party management team who may be good, but don't have the experience of working here in Lafayette with the customers? And more importantly, why would you want to give the management away to another third-party team where, from the owners, we are the owners of LUS?
Thank you, Mr. Henry. Time has expired.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Mark Pope, followed by Harold Scheffler.
Good evening. Mark Pope, private citizen. Excuse me if I read. I'm opposed to this LUS Next Gen proposal on several levels. This company, which has never managed a multi-tiered utility operation such as LUS, strolls into town and tells us our exceptionally well-run and award-winning utility operation is substandard. Next Gen wants to manage LUS assets to make money, and sooner or later, we the people will pay substantially higher utility rates. We should listen to Andrew Duyon with his decades of LUS experience. LUS has the lowest utility rates in the state, the least downtime due to electric infrastructure failure, and the best customer service top to bottom of any utility company. Lafayette citizens own LUS. If this proposal advances and is ultimately implemented, it will be in direct defiance of the will of the people. The Next Gen proposal is based on dystopia. Yes, that term from the book Brave New World. Dystopia is a place where everything is unpleasant or bad, typically in an environmentally degraded state, similar to the bleak picture the Next Gen folks paint for Lafayette if we don't allow them to bring Lafayette into the 21st century. We have smart, resourceful personnel within LUS, and we already have a consulting engineering firm. We could team up with an experienced technical advisor and, along with LUS's capable engineers, plan and implement needed improvements. Reclaiming Lafayette is a large and growing group of concerned citizens. We're fed up with the behind-the-scenes wheeling and dealing, doublespeak, and hidden motives we're forced to endure from this government. There is an unprecedented level of distrust for this government. The Next Gen proposal states that the company will bring in UL as a research partner. The plan is based on this administration's obsession with turning Lafayette into a smart city. There's an obsession with renewable energy sources right here, right now. If you follow the model, the next move is to mandate renewable energy in LCG's construction codes, just like the mandates currently in California. Additionally, the next-gen research effort will rely heavily on federal grant dollars. Our federal government is broke and deeply in debt, yet this administration wants to reap millions of federal dollars for its pet project. Government has a responsibility to provide basic services, but big government at all levels proposes unnecessary projects and spends money like it grows on trees. How recklessly irresponsible. Our focus should be on improving roads and bridges, drainage, fire, and police, not these wasteful, expensive, and unnecessary projects that this government seems to believe will make Lafayette stand out. We are, and always have been, unique, resourceful, and self-reliant, yet we're slowly losing that. We don't need experts coming in here to tell us how we should model and develop our city and parish. Our current progressive path is nothing but groupthink, and I never thought we'd have government leadership selling out our unique individuality at a cost of millions of dollars to taxpayers. Smart city sustainable development is an unrealistic attempt to create a utopian society. I know, it's deep, right? Extreme environmentalism drives massive government regulations. Indoctrination creates disillusionment and guilt among the masses, showing us, the ignorant people, how we do not know how to live. Too many cars on the road? Let's build bike paths and create parklets by putting tables and chairs in the street at parking meters. That will surely discourage the use of cars and encourage bicycling and will save the world. Let's tell the people the right way to live with mixed-use buildings, businesses on the ground floor, residents living above. Everybody can bicycle and walk everywhere, and we'll save the world. All these things and much more extreme government overreach is in the 200-page Big Government Plan Lafayette, based on sustainability. Plan Lafayette and sustainability is a political issue, not one based on science. We're fed up with the big government LCG direction we're heading in. We want our conservative city and parish back.
Next speaker, please.
Harold Shuffler.
Thank you for the opportunity to say a few words in this important issue. It's really Lafayette's future. And just first of all, I'll go through a little history and then how we can go forward as a community that has successfully run a utility system since 1897. In 1897, we built the Grant Street power plant. The remnants of it is still there. It was steam powered, using number 6 bunker oil, exactly the same fuel that was used by our trains. And a major part of that output was to supply electricity to the Roundhouse and the Southern Pacific Power System. That operated through 1953, and then we went to Doc Bonet, and then later Curtis Rodemaker was built, and then we went to the big steam power plant that CLECO is running. Now, I spent a day at that plant and pretty much understand how it operates. It's 600 megawatts. Lafayette owns 300 of it. LIPA owns 30% of it, and CLECO the remaining 20. That has been successful over the years. Sierra Club, which I'm the chairman of, had a public hearing 2 years ago, and our issue is the Rodemaker power plant. The fact that it's on coal, it's got lots of problems, and it's served its useful life. So what I'd like to talk about is how we go forward as a community. One, our history of 121 years of successfully running a utility, can certainly go forward into the future. What do? We sell Rotamaker. And who to? I signed on at the request of Foster Campbell as an interested party in the sale of Cleco to Macquarie Bank and British Columbia investors. As such, I was a legal participant, got all the pleadings, went to all the hearings, and was kind of astounded that no one from Lafayette was there, and was questioned, why wasn't Lafayette represented? And I had no answer. It was important because Cleco produces 3,100 megawatts of power. Lafayette's share of that is 300. We had 10% of the output. So in one of these proceedings, I asked, would you all have any interest in us speaking to the buyers of Cleco in buying Rotamaker 2? Yes, we would. And why? Because we have a 10% deficiency in our peak needs. Y'all have that 10%. When we have to buy 10%, it's usually at a big loss. That would solve one of our problems going forward. And I said, how much are you talking about? Well, we don't know. I said, would $1 million a megawatt be a justifiable number to start with? Absolutely. So selling that and the rail cars probably give us $350 million, $400 million. That's subject to bid, certainly. There are other interested parties. NRG has already converted 4,100 megawatts of coal power to combined cycle gas. So that's the way forward. And that's just talking points. Next is, what do we do to go forward? Energy now is, if you look at 1917, 68% of new energy worldwide was renewable. U.S. was 64%. And it's coming because it's so cheap. Combined cycle, wind is the cheapest, combined cycle gas is next, and waste heat recovery and solar. All of those are half the price of coal. And our coal power is 4.5 cents to ship it here. Enormous line loss. So moving forward, we can put in renewed, cost-effective, really cheap, that can lower our rates, residential rates, by 40%, and we can lower our commercial rates by more than half by going to modern, very efficient power right here and not moving anywhere. So thanks.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Chair, he was the final speaker. However, Diana K. Lennon, she did not fill out a blue card, but she did submit questions in writing with reference to the LUS management issue and the next-gen proposal. And also, she had requested during the last meeting a copy of the presentation, which we received today from NextGen Bernhardt. It was, I just looked 2 minutes ago, it was uploaded to the website, so it is on the website.
Thank you. Mr. Terrio?
Thank you, sir. If you could include Mr. Escott, please.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Escott, am I correct in that the entire council will vote on any sale, lease, management, or partnership contract involving LUS?
Yes, sir. One way or the other.
The entire council?
Yes, sir.
This is what I'd like for you to do. I would like for you to put on the agenda for the next council meeting a resolution saying that LUS is not for sale or lease and will not be considered for outside management or partnership at the current time. The purpose of this resolution, covered by some of the gentlemen tonight, Ms. Aber also, is that with LUS employees, there's a lot of anxiety that's been going on for some time now. And also, I think we owe it to the citizens of the community to let them know where we stand on LUS. I myself personally have not heard of one person that's been in favor of either of the four: a sale, a lease, management, or a partnership. Not one individual since this has been going forward. So if you don't mind, have that put on the next agenda, Mr. Escott, Ms. Williams, and we will go from there. That's all I have for now, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Bernhardt, a couple of minutes, please, on your response.
Minutes? Okay, thank you. Let me just sum up. Appreciate your time today. We've second time we've been here, both at your request that we've come, Councilman. I want to just come in here and some of the things I want to be very, very clear on. The employees are our first priority. They are not going to have their pay or their position unequivocally or their benefits cut. So anybody to say anything differently is really inappropriate, period. Second thing, we can do things that LUS cannot do and has not done. LUS cannot write a check for $140 million to the city of Lafayette. In other words, every citizen wouldn't pay any taxes next year. Let's repeat that, no taxes. LUS does not have the capability to write a check for $184 million to alleviate all debt. Lafayette's consolidated government bond rating will go up because of the lack of debt. LUS has never reduced the rates for the citizens of Lafayette. And after $1 million study, we've already come to the conclusion we can reduce them at least 10% for the next 3 years. And contrary to popular belief, 94% of all the utility used in Lafayette are managed by others and not produced and managed by LUS employees. So the myth that we're managing our own utility production is just not accurate in any way. We appreciate your time, and we think we spent a lot of time on this, and we hope you for your consideration. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Boudreau?
Mr. Escott, on the back end of Mr. Terrio's request, if you could provide to the council an explanation of the area of the charter that talks about the negotiation of contracts by the administration. And the purpose for that is to determine, although the resolution is non-binding in any form, does that hinder the ability of the charter-directed way that we negotiate contracts versus any other considerations? Does that take away the authority of the executive office, the administration, to negotiate contracts? And does that violate our charter in any way? Not, you don't have to do that now unless you have an opinion,
Well,
but.
I guess I want to clarify something because I may have misunderstood the purpose or the scope of the resolution. I thought the resolution was going to be a statement that the council was not going to consider the sale, lease, or other third-party management of LUS utilities. That if it's the scope is that and that alone, I don't see how that in any way impedes the administration from continuing negotiations.
And that's the point I wanted to make, is differentiate between the executive's power and the legislative power as our charter speaks to it today.
Right.
So if in fact that is the scope on how you interpret it, and whatever happens here doesn't affect their ability there, That's the clarity that I want.
Right. It simply would come down to a question of, do those efforts want to be expended, knowing that ultimately the authority who may approve that is going to even consider it. It may be a wasted effort.
Right, thank you. So the next thing I want to request that has been spoken about often by people I've come into contact with, and I know one of the challenges, I think you indicated earlier, all of this is in such an infancy state. It's difficult to get into the weeds of what is, and one of the things that I have said, I've often told people to certain things that we don't know, because those things haven't been talked about, because the legal department would have to review those things. But one thing I think that we could start with, we do have one proposal of record. What I would like to do is achieve an opinion of the Attorney General. I do not want, I think it was Mr. Moss who mentioned, as he indicated, he do not want to be told that the people cannot vote on this. And I have also heard many parties say that the people should vote and would vote. But I've also heard and discovered that there could be some conflicts as it relates to our charter on what can and cannot be sent forward to the vote of the people. So to take away any local influence, I would like to achieve an Attorney General's opinion of whatever proposals, there's one in and whatever others may come in, that in that form, because we could send the actual proposal itself along with the question for review and get a outside third-party opinion on whether or not that this should be driven by the LPUA, the entire council, or the citizens of the city of Lafayette. And get that very clearly defined, so as these conversations go forward, we would know who's going to be the ultimate determining party.
Okay, Councilman Boudreaux, can I ask just a couple of quick questions?
Yes, sir, absolutely.
I assume you want us, we can draft that request in letter form with the necessary attachments submitted on your behalf. And the reason I ask that is I, as the city parish attorney, am not capable on my own of requesting the AG. They won't recognize my request.
Shame on me.
I have to do it on behalf of an elected official.
That's fine. You
Okay.
could do it on behalf of Kenneth Boudreaux, and just like Mr. Landry called Mr. Conk today without solicitation, telling we would appreciate a quick turnaround and that it not be placed on somebody's desk for us not to receive an answer. And that could also come from Councilman Kenneth Boudreaux, and then I'm gonna have Senator Boudreaux call him directly as he look forward to his next year's budget as well.
Right. Okay. And
So yes, do it
all
on
right.
behalf of myself. Send the contract as we have it today, or the proposal as we have it today.
All right.
And if you need my assistance as
Yeah,
far as how, I'll make
the
myself
second thing
available,
was
but
just-
legally worded to find out who can vote, what actions must be taken
All right.
if in fact this is to be considered.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Mr. Boudreaux, I'll give you the secret to getting a response from Mr. Landry. He was a CrossFit buddy of mine.
Oh, well, that ain't gonna work for me.
It's going to work for you.
But he did ask for my support.
Mr. Terrio. Mr. Terrio.
Yeah, again, just to follow up on what Mr. Boudreaux said, some information that was provided to me, and Mr. Escott, you can follow up on this, but if I'm not mistaken, and I could be, but I thought the AG's office had given me this a while back, and that no individual council member can ask for an AG opinion. Only the mayor president, a state rep, or a state senator can ask. If an individual council member wants an AG opinion, it has to be the whole council in order to
I
get-
can certainly draft it for the mayor
It'll have to be a
president.
resolution or something
Yeah.
by the whole council in order to approve.
And that's certainly fine. I can draft it on behalf of the mayor president.
All right, just doing a follow-up.
Okay.
That's all I have. Thank you.
Okay, no one else is in the queue, so we will proceed to the next item on the agenda, which is ordinances for final adoption. I would remind everyone that item number 10 has been pulled indefinitely. Jeremy, would you read item 11?
2018, an ordinance of the Lafayette City Parish Council declaring parcels of property located at 705 and 731 Jefferson Street and 124 East Main Street, Lafayette, Louisiana, comprising the former Federal Courthouse Building, the former Public Access Cable Station Building, and the former Lafayette Police Department Building, not needed for public purposes, authorizing the sale of the property to OFCH LLC and authorizing the Lafayette Mayor President to execute documents including a purchase agreement and take other actions needed relative to the sale and redevelopment of the property.
Need a motion, please?
Motion.
Motion by Mr. Bellard. Second? Second by Mr. Boudreau. The floor is open for comments or questions from the council members. Seeing nothing, I do have one point. Who's handling this for legal?
You'll,
Could you identify yourself,
I'm
please?
Steve Oates, Assistant City Attorney. I have a few just overview comments relative to the ordinances before you. We sent an executive summary, I think, to each of you about 3 weeks ago.
Okay, if you would just hold that thought for a moment, please. Mr. Castillo may have some very specific questions.
Thank you, sir. Not necessarily for the attorney. I just have, Mr. Roberto's not here, I guess he's coming, or somebody. This proposal that was brought before us, how many proposals did we receive?
Mr. Robideau asked me to answer these questions. You'll recall in the packet, we had back in, I guess it was in June of 2017, the Urban Land Institute came in, and I think a lot of us all participated in what, different ideas for downtown. And, when we saw that the proposal here dealing with the federal courthouse encompasses more than just the federal courthouse. It's the federal courthouse, the AOC property, and the police building. Properties, the police building hasn't been used since 1997, the federal courthouse since 2009, and the AOC building since 2010. And when the Urban Land Institute, all of us, I think I saw most of you down there, they came forward with some low-hanging fruit, and one was the redevelopment of downtown, in particular getting residents, more people living downtown. Out of that, Carly Amlabar and Mayor Robideau put out a request for qualifications, and I think that's what you're getting at. In April of 2018, 5 different developers responded. All 5 were shortlisted. They were all interviewed by the Carly's staff and Mayor Robideau. And Plasta, Lafayette, Weinstein, Nelson were presumptively selected. When you do a request for qualifications like that, you pick someone based on their qualifications, and then you negotiate with them, keeping your number 2 ready so that you can keep them in a competitive spirit. Why were they selected? I think you've seen in the materials we forwarded their response. It was a quality team with past performance with similar projects, certainly a team with financial strength, and I think Mayor Robideau expressed that they weren't coming in and asking for governmental concessions, no TIFs, no pilots. The idea that we were going to put a significant value on the ad valorem tax rolls, get it back into commerce, and their proposal was to keep all 3 buildings and have market rate rents in the development. So there were 5. Through that negotiation, we came forward with the purchase agreement that you have in front of you. What your ordinance does is set up this purchase agreement with this team at a minimum price of $1.4 million. And that's the appraisal that you have that was provided to you. And I have a full copy for the record here today. The team, as you saw in there, is E.J. Crampy with Plaster Lafayette, Jim Poche and his team, Dyke Nelson with Weinstein Nelson out of Baton Rouge, Brian Poche and Danny Nugent with Related Southwest Companies. They're doing 68 apartment units, a little over 25,000 square feet of commercial space, pool, clubhouse, common areas. They've agreed to have it commence by July of 2019. They've agreed to have it completed by December 31st of 2020. And in the agreement, provide for sewer upgrades, not only for that particular development, but as a catalyst for future development in the downtown area. Obvious benefits, redeveloping vacant buildings, revitalizing downtown. I was able to get some estimates on the increase on ad valorem taxes that will be paid. Conservatively, in talking with the assessor, once it's built, what they plan, it's going to appraise at conservatively $12 million. That will mean on an annual basis an additional $115,000 to the parish. Annually, an additional $25,000 to the city, and an additional $17,000 to DDA on an annual basis. The question I've gotten from some of you is, how are we guaranteed that they're going to build what they say they're going to build? You know, we're going to transfer this. Well, first there's the process of the due diligence and inspection and the commitment. Then we also built in that through your mayor, president, or his designee, probably somebody in planning and zoning, we control the facades. If they don't commence construction in July, they pay us $25,000 a month. If they don't finish it on time, they pay us $10,000 a month. In addition to that, we built in injunctive powers. So if they start to build something else other than what they specified, you know, we can stop them. We built in attorney's fees, so if they get out of line and we have to enforce it, they're going to have to pay our cost in doing that. The main thing they also do is people can make you promises, you can have contracts, but if they don't have the financial wherewithal to back up those promises, so we made sure that Mr. Crampy, his company, Mr. Weinstein, his companies, they've made financial guarantees and are signing a guarantee agreement to back up all the promises that are in the purchase agreement. And those are people with the financial ability to stand for that. The ordinance you have before you, in simple terms, it declares that the property is not needed today for public purpose. You can't be arbitrary and capricious about that, but the fact that the buildings have been unused for all of these long periods, we did have a proposition in 2006 to try to build a new courthouse there, and that was defeated by the people. I think with those things in consideration, I think a court will not interpose their decision. If you feel that it's not needed for public purpose today, your decision will be respected. It sets a minimum price of $14 million. Now there is some computation in there. Should there be over $75,000 of environmental remediation that's necessary, it gives them the option to come back to us. We don't have to fund it out of the escrow. Also, the old police building is attached to the LaSantra building, and that needs to be severed. You know, the electrical connections, and I think there might be some sewer as well. And it authorizes, the ordinance authorizes the president to execute any documents necessary to accomplish those purposes.
Okay.
A long way around to answer your question, but there were 5.
Okay. Couple more questions. developers have been told in the downtown area that the sewer system needs some serious upgrading just to handle what's there now. Who's gonna fund those upgrades? Would it be the developer? Would it be LUS or partnership to upgrade this system? Can you tell me that?
Yes, sir. In a meeting with Public Works, they estimated that right now, while they're under construction, until it's full, they can handle the sewer needs. When it's at full capacity, meaning all 68 units are built, all the space is being occupied, there was going to need to be some improvements. I think Public Works, the estimate in the meeting I was at was about $400,000. However, the whole $1.4 million here that we've agreed to with the developer will be put in an escrow, and you know, to do whatever needs to be done. They have the opportunity to self-execute if we want them to. You're familiar with the betterment agreements that Public Works does on some projects. Sometimes it's more economical and you get more for your money to have someone privately execute it. We have the options to do that either way. But it will be, the way it was described by the Public Works people, we will more than meet the needs of this project, and depending on the projects that we decide, create a catalyst and more capacity, not only for downtown, but for adjoining areas. I think the initial, if you go all the way to the river, it's a problem. I think they were talking about a lift station and bringing it over to the plant over by the airport, by the thruway.
But through conversation that I had in the past with people downtown who were trying to develop certain things, they were denied because of the sewer capacity currently, that they're at capacity. So this here is really gonna exacerbate the issue, and any other developer in town that would be responsible for upgrading any type of sewer system connected to LUS when they develop. To give this developer anything but that is unfair for anyone. To allow them to not do this and say that we're gonna do it with the 1.4 isn't right. I don't agree with that at all. As a developer, if I have to develop anywhere within this city, I have to pay the upgrades, the sewer, the water, whatever it is. So I'm definitely not going to support this in the form that it's in. I understand we need development downtown, we need residential downtown, I understand it all. But until we solve our own problems, I don't see this thing moving. Another issue, at any time that this was to take place and this contract is signed, can this development company sell this to someone else, to another developer, either prior to construction, during construction, or after construction?
Of course, they can sell it after construction, but if they try to sell it before construction, we will still have the guarantees of the Crampy Group and the Southwest Group. We wanted to make sure of that because...
Guarantees of what? What kind of guarantees?
They're guarantees of all the promises of the development that's going to happen in here. When you select someone based on a request for qualifications, it's not just on their proposal. It's about who the people are, their financial ability, the projects they've done that are similar. So to allow somebody to just sell it
I don't want to interrupt you, Mr. Owens, but I understand. I know who they are, and they're very well capitalized.
We built belt and suspenders so they couldn't get away from the
strong business people. But this type of development is not just a normal development. This is going to take some big dollars, and I don't think the time frame that's pretty aggressive time frame if you ask me. They're going to keep the same old buildings, correct? They're not going to...
Their current plan is to use the buildings, and the reason they're not coming to us for concessions, money to help support it, is because they have figured out ways with historic tax credits to make their money go farther. They've committed to almost $15 million on this aggressive schedule. This, once they were selected through this competition, and then we sat down, it was with Public Works, it was with all of the people involved with the project, and this is I mean, no agreement is perfect. This one is very solid and should be a catalyst for not only this development, but for others downtown. Taking off my hat as an assistant city parish attorney, as a person who's had my business downtown for 32 years, this is just an exciting opportunity for us to, you know, catalyze, to have further things happen, you know, to build on the dreams that we've all talked about for so many years in downtown Lafayette.
Yeah, I've heard a lot about those dreams over the past 11 years. Parking garages, I heard about all those good things with that site. I don't see any of that in these documents. A little disappointed that the buildings are staying and not new buildings are being built, because we've been told that these buildings are in deplorable condition, that they should be torn down. Number of issues with asbestos and you name it. In 11 years, I heard it all. This agreement is a good agreement. I understand what y'all did, but I really don't think it's going to achieve what downtown is looking for. What really sticking in my craw is that sewer issue. I hate to tell you that, but that is one thing that's really setting me back. As you know, I fought for 11 years to keep this site for a possible new courthouse site, which I know it's probably never going to happen in my time. And I'm for development downtown, but what I see here is not the vision that was presented in the last 11 years. We have a lot of buildings downtown that can be developed the same way, commercial at the bottom, living quarters on top. Again, developers are told no because of the sewer capacity issues that they were having, parking issues. We just shut down a parking garage. You know, we got some serious issues down there that we need to address. And this doesn't address anything for parking, doesn't address anything for sewer capacity. It just tells me that they're gonna take 3 old buildings and they're gonna remodel them and try to make some apartments out of it in a time frame that I don't think is achievable, and at a cost that I think is going to cost more than what they're saying. That's just me, my opinion. I'm going to yield the floor now, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
I had a couple questions about the contract. Well, first let me say, while I'm very excited to see something happen with that building, because it is an eyesore downtown Lafayette, so I'm thrilled to see something go there, and then I'm thrilled to see that the tax revenue will generate. I think we're all excited about that. But I did see some, I want to know who's not excited about that, but all joking aside, I got a little nervous reading a few of these items that were under the contract, and you kind of touched on them, but I want to go a little bit, dig a little deeper in them. The portion with the police station, it mentions that separating the police station from the property, that anything over $15,000 LCG is responsible for. Sewer upgrades, we may pay additional for anything that we need to add. And we just touched on the fact that we know there's going to have a major need for sewer upgrades, not just in that area, but on all of downtown. And then environmental, it says that in anything over a certain amount, LCG may be liable for. And after 3, I kind of said, okay, time out. I know I'm going to need to speak because there's got to be more in there. And the last thing I want is for us as a council to approve this, and then in 5 months, administration come to us, or builders come to us and say, oh, look, it was over $15,000. We need $20,000 from you. Or it was, you know, the environmental, gosh, the asbestos, we all know it's in there. We know what to expect. I see the writing on the wall, and that has me incredibly nervous to know that we have not allocated funds for this, and to know that we may be coming out of pocket just for the 3 issues I mentioned. So, that's just my first question. So if maybe you can address a few of these. Like I said, I love the idea of this, but as Jay said, I've got some concerns about how it's written now. So maybe you can address those 3 for right now.
Very legitimate questions and things that went back and forth with the developer at length, as well as with Wesley Moore. Wesley Moore, the appraisal that we've got, Wesley's does a lot of stuff for government, and beyond question. In fact, the developers didn't even question when they saw who did it. When you get to the asbestos, while the 5 groups that proposed went and looked at the building, they didn't actually do environmental or get someone to come and say it's going to cost this to take out. And the big one is asbestos, whether it's asbestos tiles or insulation around piping. And the appraisal of the 1.4 million has a universal assumption in it that it's basic environmental remediation for buildings of that time period, that character.
Right.
And we came to an agreement that that's about $75,000 worth. It's developers don't want to spend money getting the work done until they know they have it under contract. So the balance there is to give them an upset. We don't have to pay it if it's more.
Say that one more time.
We don't have, if, let's say
BLCG.
let's say it comes in at $80,000.
Okay.
The developer in the agreement first can agree to just pay it themselves. They can come to us and ask us, and we can say no. Or we can say, it sounds reasonable, it's $5,000, it's $10,000. That would have affected the 1.4 value in the appraisal. So that's why we're escrowing the $1.4 million right from the beginning. But we're not on the hook. We don't have to do it. Same thing with the separation from the building. We got our facilities folks out there to meet with them, but until they have it under contract, they don't want to get to hard prices of what it's going to do to separate it. And so we agreed that $15,000 would be an upset price. They come and they say, they find it's $15,000, we're not going to hear from them. We may even hear, they may do 2025 and not come see it. If it's really extreme, it's not going to be, because they looked at it physically. We don't have to pay it. If they come and say, we don't, it's going to cost $30,000 and we want LCG to pay for 15, we can tell them no. Okay. On the asbestos separation, and was it the sewer? Again, our public works people estimated we could probably get by with doing nothing while it's under construction. When it reaches full capacity, it was going to take about $400,000, not for things to connect that property to the system, but because we're running out, as Mr. Castile said, capacity to get that sewer to the West Bayou Parkway plant. So they have a workaround where they put a catch basin and they pump it at low peak times to the treatment plant over by the airport on the thruway. But the good news is we do need more. You know, the idea is going to be escrowed to do projects and maybe do them in a private-public partnership. We don't have to, but if we can get more for that money because of the way we execute it, we're going to explore that. And there was one more. Was that it? Electric, asbestos?
No, I think you covered all 3 of them.
Okay.
And thank you for that.
Yeah. And that was specifically addressed in the agreement. We didn't want us, while the developer doesn't want to be locked in, if they find something that's astronomically expensive, we didn't want to give them a blank check either, where they could come back and make us pay it.
Right.
So we both have upset provisions, and that will come when they finish their due diligence before we sell them the property.
Right. Well, so if, I know they don't want to get into it, and I can understand this was a private to private sale, but we're dealing with tax dollars and the unknown, and then we'll see when we cross that bridge, and let's get the sale over and we'll discuss it then. That isn't.
No.
Right.
This would be before the transfer, before the closing. When they sign this agreement, they have a period to get in there. They know they've got it for this price to go, and they're going to spend their money. They're going to spend a lot of money getting the detail on this, and they have to come back to us. This all gets determined before we transfer the property to them.
But at that point, it's out of our hands, because by then we would have already said, yeah, sure, go ahead. We get the mayor full control to make those decisions, right?
You give it on this, but Article 7 of our Constitution, we can't give away stuff.
Okay.
So those things, the 1.4 million that's in the appraisal, if there is an unusual amount of asbestos, it affects that appraisal. So, yes, you're delegating that to the mayor president, but he can't go outside the structures of the Constitution. He still needs to make sure if those repairs are more, that the appraiser agrees with it.
But then that affects the sale price. He still doesn't come back to us.
Correct.
Okay. And I love that you said that we can always just tell them no. Why don't we just take those parts out of the contract and just assume that none of us are going to want to pay that money?
The reason you can't is because a developer has to spend significant amounts of money, close to $100,000, to answer those questions. They're not going to do that unless you have a purchase agreement. Much like when you buy a house, I mean, you can get pre-approval now. They all want our business, but they want you to have a purchase agreement on that house before Home Bank will process a loan for you. It's the same kind of concept. Going through that process is expensive, especially with a redevelopment like this.
All right. And again, it's different when it's in private. It's me buying a home from somebody or vice versa. We're dealing with tax dollars, and it makes me hesitate with the unknown of what they will come back with. And
Good questions.
And I'm sure they have the same uncertainty themselves. Do we even have money in the budget to accommodate those numbers, rough numbers? If they come back to us and say sewer?
I've followed you on AOC a little bit with your budget, but I don't know the answer to that. But any money they'd have to spend, I'm sure you would have to budget.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can you make Lori live, Bruce?
Yeah.
You make Lori live?
Ma'am?
Ms. Choops, make her live? Where, say they did come back and, well, never mind.
Well, and remember,
Oh, yeah.
the cash will be that $1.4 million that's based on
Right.
the fact that the assumption by the appraiser is you're not going to need more than $75,000 to do the abatement. You're not going to need more than $15,000 to separate the electrical.
Right.
If you do, so that cash is there, the developer's putting up the cash to pay that.
Still hesitant if I'm going to support this just on that. I would like to see us make some edits to the contract that do address those concerns, because just not having a dollar amount of what to expect and them come to the mayor and say, we're going to take this much off because of asbestos that we already know is there, sewer issues that we already know we have, and then the police station that we already know is there and connected. It's a lot of things that we know, and I would like to see a better number. So if we can make any edits, Lowell, that'd be great. So I'm interested to hear what everyone else has to say.
Mr. Boudreau?
Thank you. Couple of things, some of them have been addressed, but I want to look at them in a different view. As it relates to the proposals, yes, sir, please. Was there a selection team to determine of the 5 people who made the short list? Was there a team, or is just the mayor president himself?
Carly Almlabar really led that, and I think she's watching tonight. She may text me if you ask me a question that I don't know, but she really led that, and they were all proposers were brought in, all 5. One of them was the Community Foundation, and they were more, I think their reason for putting in a proposal is if we needed a...
No, I'm sorry, who reviewed the proposals to determine the selection?
Yeah.
Carly and the mayor, or?
Say Carly, if you're watching, answer, she's.
Okay, let's move
But I
beyond
know
that
it was Carly and the mayor's team.
Okay,
It was not me, I was not there.
okay.
You were?
So, how many acres of land we're talking about, the footprint for this particular consideration?
About. I'm looking for a diagram. .24.
2.24, okay.
Yeah, and less than except the Lasantra corner,
Got you.
but, so about two.
Right. So I could tell you one concern that I would have, especially with the 1.4 appraisal, and now knowing that it's going to go into an escrow, and that could be tapped into to address some other considerations or potential considerations that's built into this ordinance, is that I was looking and I was thinking back, I immediately started thinking about the garage in the appraisal we have on that at 770. So the current appraisal is a little under double that number. 1.4 is a little under 770. So anything we tap into is going to bring it much less than that. And for my appreciation, just like we have now realized that the garage is unfortunately unsafe to utilize, the courthouse, this property, so I think we're really just buying land. Whoever takes this into possession, either or, whether the city would have bought the garage from the parish or whether this private group buys the federal courthouse from the city, you're really buying the footprint. And with the garage sitting on such a smaller, I'm concerned about the appraisal, because the garage sits on such a smaller track, because the structural aspect of things, as we appreciate it, has no value because of its current condition. The 1.4, if that's the selling price, that's our money. That's our profit. That's for us, as far as I see it. I don't see getting 1.4 and putting back any dollar back into it. To me, that should be ours. So that definitely would be a concern for me, just from that on our dollar amount. And I know the garage appraisal, which is much more recent. I don't know how recent was the courthouse appraisal, but may want to look at that. Next thing is the no public necessity. I think we have a public necessity downtown right now for parking. And to a prior administration, before the current administration, there had been proposals to demolish the facility and flatten it and utilize it for parking until such time a decision was made on a district courthouse. Because we knew the tax initiative for a district courthouse had previously failed, but the need did not go away. Parking was horrendous then, and now it's about to get even more horrendous with us losing those spaces. So as far as a current public necessity and some of the creativity transit is doing in public works right now to find parking for people we're under contract with, I don't know if that still exists. The environmental issue, I don't know who has it, but we was told years ago over $100,000 no, we were spending over $100,000 to maintain it, but hundreds of thousands of dollars for asbestos mitigation. That's of record. That was one of the reasons why the demolition was always denied, because you would have to mitigate the asbestos before you take it down. So I could tell you the environmental demand is going to be well in excess of $75,000, and we have those records somewhere in LCG already. So like some of the other members have said, we know we're going to have at least a proposal to do something. As you indicated, we can say no. But the fact that we would address these issues, which would minimize our profit on the sale of this, really concerns me. So in section 6 of this ordinance, it already says the chief financial officer, through the Lafayette Mayor President, is authorized to prepare administrative budget revisions to comply with the dictates of this ordinance. So whatever is dictated, they already authorized to comply. Now, upon completion of that, the chief financial officer, through the mayor, shall prepare a written report back to us detailing the amount and nature of any adjustments required to implement this budget amendment. That tells me we are going to spend money. We don't know how much, but this government is going to spend money on that development. That's telling me that right now. We're going to know about it. It's going to be reported back to us. It's going to be public and transparent. But I think if we pass this now, we agreeing to that in advance. That's how I read Section 6 of this. And again, the 1.4 to start, for me, that should be profit. If we do this, that's ours. That's for the city. Any other negotiations, and I don't think that's why, I believe that's why they didn't ask for anything up front, and they didn't talk TIFs and pilots and those types of things. This has actually a new form to incentivize a development. And I'm not in total disagreement with incentivizing developments, because I believe that we need to do that. But downtown is not a place that needs an incentive. That's a place where people want to go. That's why they had 5 applicants, 5 proposals. Somebody's going to develop it at their full cost on their own. So it's just the environmental issues, is already known, that there's a lot of unknown. So I'm going to move to table this. There's obviously is some more work that needs to be done, and some of us would like to see done to get a much better product for LCG's purpose. So I'm going to move to table at this time, Mr. Chairman, and see if that is the will of the council.
There is a motion to table. Do I hear a second? Second by Ms. Hebert. So the discussion now will be on the motion to table. I have Mr. Bellard in line and Mr. Lewis in line. Do you want to address that at this time? Okay, you've cleared the board. So do we have any comments on the motion to table this issue from the council? Mr. Castillo.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Boudreaux, you're asking to table, is it for a certain amount of time? Because personally, my personal opinion, and after hearing you and Ms. Hebert speak, I'd like to see us kill this thing completely and start over again and have it to be a true development by a true developer company. But is your plan to defer it for a certain time frame, or?
Yeah, I mean, the mayor's in here right now, and I don't know if Lowell wants to address this. My desire now is to table and put a time frame that would give them the ability to go back and visit it. At this point, I don't want to start completely over. I think, they have the one group that's there. I think we need to restructure that. And if that group doesn't like that, they have the other 4 proposals that was already in place that can be looked at, which would be a significant time savings from starting all over. So I don't want to start all over. I supported you, and I have fought long and hard as far as the district courthouse location. The only reason I'm even letting that now go by the wayside is because I no longer see any effort of the district court trying to secure a facility as it relates to their current occupants and the amount of money we invested in that building. So my desire to have a district court location is no longer there, but I want to see something happen, but it needs to be right. So I just would like to table, and for the purpose of a time, we could give, 60 days, or 30, yeah, Steve, you got a suggestion, I'm open to it.
In talking with the developers, and a bunch of good questions, and if you have any other suggestions, I would suggest, I wouldn't think, if I can get it, if it hit most of the questions that you have, we could have something in 2 weeks. If you want to keep that, when you have developers that are willing to do it, and and they know there's significant asbestos, and that's what's built into the appraisal. And your question was when? It was July, when they did it. I think 2 weeks would be plenty, if you want to,
Let's do 30.
you can lose developer interest. I've seen that before at the university with projects.
Right.
If it costs a lot for them to even respond to a request for qualifications, and we do have a number 2 in the wings, and this group has been very aggressive with the things that y'all are bringing up. I don't need a lot of time, is what I would say.
So 2 weeks, you could address it, but can it be changed in 2 weeks? That's my only concern. Now, if we want to do 2 weeks, I'm open to that. In 2 weeks, if obviously if it's not satisfied, we could go beyond that.
Well, it sounded like some of the questions were, might be able to be addressed is, if there is a change, you want it to come back to the council. I think, that
Well,
I was thinking as you
I
were.
still have the mic, and it absolutely is gonna have to come back to this council for anything.
No, I'm talking about, I'm assuming you're going to table it tonight.
I would
but-
like the
I'm
30,
sorry,
the 30 at
Mr.
least
Rhodes,
30
could you hold up,
days.
please?
At least 30 days would suffice for me. 2 weeks is not enough, like you said. I mean, 2 weeks you can make some changes, but it's not gonna be like we're talking about here. At least 30 days. I'll stick with the 30 days outside of killing this whole thing, but
Okay, Mr. Boudreau is agreeing with you to go 30 days on the delay. Ms. Hebert, do you agree with that?
What I was asking for, if the clerk could give us a date,
November 20th.
November 20th.
So that would be the equivalent to
Right.
30 days.
And because we have to tie it to a meeting.
Okay.
Yeah, we can't take it, but not and it ends up on a
I
Wednesday.
can't come back in 30 days.
Yeah. So I would like to table until November the 20th.
You okay with that, Ms. Hebert? Okay, Ms. Hebert agrees to that. So the motion on the floor is to table until November the 20th.
Mr. Chairman?
And Mr. Oates, since I still have the floor, the questions that were asked of you tonight by Ms. Hebert, myself, Mr. Boudreau, if at all possible, could you get us those answers also, and not just the administration,
Yes, sir.
if you don't mind?
Yes, sir.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. This is Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Mr. Bellard?
Yes, can you send that to the entire council? I want to piggyback, that's okay. I want to piggyback on